assignment for dinner. They were given, scraps of paper and told to do a collage of a president, and they drew names for presidents. She was very unhappy because she got Jimmy Carter, but I think she did a really cute job. And I made the frame to put in it. That's my handiwork, just to make it look wild. And I don't know how old she was, 10 maybe, when she did that. Anyway, I liked everything she ever put her hand to. These pieces by old lady Parker they ran an article about her. She's an old lady who lives somewhere in Houston and decided to start painting these so-called memory pictures. Well, she was old enough to remember having seen things like this. And I was quite carried away. I wouldn't do it now, but at the time I was carried away with it. And so I tracked her down in Houston and went to see her and bought these few pieces, and they're all, they're neat, they're nice, and I paid too much for them. It's ridiculous, but anyway, this is sort of, this area back here is for the least interesting stuff I have. But they're okay. They're nice little scenes. The FolkArt Center in Kentucky. When I saw the man walk in the door with this in his arm, I went over to him and bought it, on the spot from him. He was bringing it into the FolkArt Center in Kentucky to leave it for sale anyway. And I don't know what that means down near Christ's Rooster. I guess that's the one who crowed 3 times or something. But in any case, I bought it from him on the spot. I think his name is Cook. Let me see. Would you pick that up, Betsy?
Sure.
At a FolkArt festival, again, at the FolkArt Center in Kentucky, these two, I have to have this guy's horns replaced. And all his animals were highly stylized, like this cow, for example. And it was said at the time, and even now, that because of his style was so distinctive, that they would be valuable. He kept telling the grandsons that they were the grandson's inheritance. He had a lot of them. Anyway, these two I got from him. 1992. I don't know if that's this one. Nope. About the same time. This guy, called Turtle Dancer, was bought at the Museum of Fine Arts in Santa Fe, I think. I'll have to look at my file to get his name. They have a fair there once or twice a year, and they give prizes. In the previous year, he had won first prize, and I just absolutely fell in love with that and paid a lot more than I should have. It was either $300 or $400, and I just went absolutely bonkers. But I was happy to hear Andrew say the other day, when I was asking him to pick out things that he liked, that
like the turtle.
he wanted that first. That's a genuine Escher, Maurice Escher, Dutchman, who's supposed to be the best draftsman before or since Rembrandt.
Is that MC Escher?
Yeah.
Man, I had no idea.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's worth more than everything else India put together.
Cool.
Yeah. And if you take it out from under that glass, it is absolutely remarkable, because the glass kind of flattens it a bit. But you want to reach out there and pick the leaves off the water.
Wow.
And I wrote that. There was a young man, Mickelson was his name, Sidney Mickelson, had a little gallery in Washington. And I went in there to get my pictures framed. I took something in to get framed. I took something in there to get framed. And I didn't have any money at all. ever. And he was helping me choose a frame, but he wanted to get into the fine arts business. And he had bought up a whole folio, I think they're called, of prints by Maurice Escher, because Escher had just had a show at the museum in Washington. And he was selling all these things. He must have had 50. And he was so enthusiastic that he was showing them all to me and then coaxing me to buy one, and I didn't really want one. But he was so enthusiastic. And I knew the show had been at the National Gallery, so I decided to buy one, and I think I paid a whole $10 for it.
Wow.
And then I, had it framed or something. And then I walked into a gallery maybe 15 years later, carrying it in my hand. The minute I walked in the door, the owner was back there. She said, "Is that an Escher?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Do you want to sell it?" Well, right away I didn't want to sell it. But I think that the sale price now is, well, last time I looked, which was a few years ago, was about $30,000.
Oh my goodness.
Those two are both good prints in the sense that they're original when they're printed on good paper by an Anderson brother. An Anderson, I have to look up his first name, who lives in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. He was schizophrenic, I think. He had some very serious mental disorder. Find him? No? Okay. Guess I goofed on that one. In any case, those two prints up there are made by his brother, not by the one who was famous, but I quite like them anyway, and they cost nothing, but never mind, I still like them. And those are scenes, those weird pine trees, I don't know what they're called. He stylized them even more, but they really do look like that.
Oh, excuse me.
And the schizophrenic brother used to pack up his paints and brushes when the storm was coming and go anchor himself to a tree on those little islands in the Gulf. An interesting bunch of people. All that stuff is still there in their shop, and he makes a killer dress, which is full length, and it's in some primitive
Pattern.
primitive fabric, like yellow domestic or something, and it's etched down the front. Some bird, and it got ruined in the storm. I have to buy another one. Okay, that's the end of it. This piece is made by Tim Lewis, and this whole nest of folk artists. Minnie Atkins is the first one who got started up there. And then I think other people said, well, if Minnie can do it, I can do it. And they all started producing stuff that they loved. And he is the only one who was really working in stone and chipping all this stuff out of stone. I believe it's sandstone. It's a soft stone. But in any case, he's a very bright man. He had been a truck driver, driving coal or something over the mountains and hills of Kentucky, and wrecked the truck, and everything fell on his legs, and he couldn't function very well anymore. And he took up this to amuse himself, and he was really very, very bright and self-educated, and made all these pieces. And he knew a lot. He knew a lot about history and mythology and other things. Surprising. His daughter's name was Amber, because all those girls were named Amber that year. But really nice man. I have this piece over there going to the kitchen.
Oh, this
Yeah,
chicken.
The chicken with tea. It is also his. Truth is, I'm not really very fond of that, but it's okay. It's his. I will keep it. And he's sort of the only one, contemporary folk artist, who uses that medium. Okay, now this was published in the Chronicle, and I liked it so much because it's, you know, you can make of it anything you want to. You can look out the window and figure somebody's imprisoned there, and that can represent freedom, or it can represent anything you like. I just loved it. So I called him up and asked if I could buy it, and he was thrilled. Nobody ever did that before. So I bought it, and that's it. It was just used to illustrate these weekly articles they had on, you know, the local scene. At that time, they no longer have that column. I don't know what his name was. What does it say on there?
Lang, is it R.O. Rolf Lang? Is it-
Yeah. That piece was made by Cher Schaefer, and I went to her house up in Kentucky. I knew who she was on the folk art scene, and I had gotten her phone number and all that stuff from my friend Sandy in Newton. So I went to see her, and I bought that piece when I was there, and I always thought it was a sheep. And we looked at it carefully the other day. It seems to be a lion. What do you think it is? I think it's a lion.
It's hard to say. It could be either one.
You know, whatever it is, I just quite like the whole, you know, torn piece of brown paper and so on.
Very neat.
These small so-called masks in that piece up there, I don't know if you know what a mezuzah is. It's a little symbol that Orthodox Jews nail on the inside of their door. And they sort of kiss it with the finger or acknowledge it in some way when they come and go from their house, and I don't know what it represents. But I called that my African mezuzah.
Funny.
10 times bigger. These were all made by Levon Wilson. Wonderful, wonderful guy. Big, 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 big. I mean, like 6'5", and heavy, and hands like hams, and gentle and sweet and soft. Black. He played basketball for University of Kentucky and then taught basketball in Japan. Did a lot of interesting stuff. Nice man. And he made all these pieces, and I think there's some other work of his.
Okay.
And when I finally got a phone number for him from some source, and I called him, I was just so surprised that he was so warm and friendly, and I went by to see him. And after that first time, I went by to see him many times, and I thought it was absolutely wonderful that the man's business cards had a picture of his mother on them, and she was very pretty. In any case, that piece is his. I was in his house, his studio actually, across the street from where he lived, and I saw this unfinished piece, that trumpeter, in one of the rooms, and just went bonkers about it. It had not been painted. He hadn't even quite finished carving it, but I absolutely adored it, so I bought it on the spot, and then later I went by and picked it up, and when he first showed it to me, the disappointment was obvious on my face because I expected the colors to be stronger. And at the time, outside in the bright sun, they seemed a little weak, but I realized later they're not weak at all, they're very strong. And I just love the whole notion that this suited for trumpet player as a bird for a trumpet. It's so fanciful and fun.
It's really fun.
With the big behind and the wire hair. And the zoot suiter who's just standing there looking. I don't know where you got the zoot suit idea. The zoot suit was well over and gone by the time you made these pieces. Top one playing the flute. I don't remember the man's name. I've got it in the files. Was a prisoner at that federal prison in Louisiana. It's named for Angola.
Angola
Yes,
State, yeah.
Angola. It's made for a country in Africa because they're almost all Africans. And he killed his wife. And I spoke to him about this before I took off with the picture. And he's up for parole. I said, "You're gonna behave yourself when you get out." And he assured me he would. Anyway, it was he who told me to kill his wife. But he's got all kinds of symbols of life up there, or living or dying or something, or candles and so on. The one under that I like a lot. That's made by Willie, whose real name is Willie Lamondosa. And I guess he's Cajun. He lives over there in Cajun country. Really nice man. Worked as a maintenance engineer at some of those factories in that area, and just did this for fun. And he kept taking pieces in to show to his supervisor, who just, every time he brought one in, she'd say, "Those are wonderful. Willie, they're wonderful." So they called himself Willie.
Neat.
And I went to see him a lot of times, and I love the house he lived in. A typical Cajun house up on stilts, absolutely right on the bayou, right on it.
Mike, there are a bunch more Willy Willies. You want to get some of those while you're doing them?
Okay.
Here's one, and here's one,
Yes.
You want us to talk about these any, Carmen?
and this is one too, isn't it? Right here.
Yes, it is.
Look,
He made that as a gift to me. And I think he had seen Modigliani's paintings, because it looks just like one, with the long, elongated neck and hair and stuff. But he gave that to me as a gift. I think he says that on the back of the thing. Because I sent somebody else to see him who liked his work. The two chickens, one of them has a broken tail. That could easily be repaired. You just pull that piece off and fish out the piece of the tail that fell in, but I'm not going to fool with it. In any case, I saw that in a gallery and didn't want to pay for it in Baton Rouge. And subsequently got his name and telephone number from somebody else. And so I went to see him, and it was a lot less from him, of course, always, than from the gallery. The one on the left I also got from him. First had no color at all, it was just copper. And I then later took it back to him and had him paint it, but it was more fun with the color in it.
you got another Willy Willy in the bathroom, the crane.
Yeah, that's
You gonna get it, Mike?
the FolkArt I bought, I think. And I like it, but it's, of all the pieces I own, I think it's probably the simplest. But still, he did a nice job with painting the stuff on the frame and all the rest of it. And then he also did that fish up there. He did several fish like that. And I like that a lot. I bought that big green fish made out of palm frond at a little street fair in Galveston, and I love it, and it costs nothing. I mean, like $10 or something. I love it. The redfish over here with the holes cut out in the middle, I bought it at the same place. It's by somebody who just put it together, and I liked it. The other one I bought in Galveston some years earlier, and he just made the fish because he loves to make fish, and I like it a lot. There's another one over the door over here somewhere, which I also bought in Galveston, which is a genuine piece of folk art. I don't know that he was selling it or was known as a folk artist, but that's what he did because he loved it. Does that thing move?
Mm-hmm.
That's a scroll that was made by Hope Atkinson, who is a lone fisherwoman who runs a big fishing operation up in somewhere in Lake Superior. And I just love it. I would love to take it apart and frame these separately, but it would just wreck the whole thing. I bought this from Marcia Marcia's gallery in Montgomery, Alabama, and she knew Hope quite well. I think it's quite well done, and I like it. And it's a parable about a man who stole the golden candlesticks from the temple. And the rabbi was told, and they chased him and found him and gave him the other gold candlestick,
Oh.
or something like that. And I think the rest of this is just, it's all handmade, but it's commercial stuff. This is made by a very famous man in Denmark. Very pricey, and I love it. And I went to his studio. His name is not there. Bjorn Vinblad. BJORNWIM, I guess, BLAD. And I love his charming little.
And he also did the little piece, the white piece up there.
Yes. And I went to his studio, and he had pieces more or less like this that might have been 4 or 5 feet tall, which were so beautiful, but not affordable.
Is that where that
Yeah.
was?
Were probably all made by Jerry Brown. And he had other things on his properties. Isn't that wonderful?
Gourds?
That was made by Tim Lewis, and I saw a picture of it someplace, because it also exists in the High Museum in Atlanta. He had made it.
Now, wait a minute, that's not the same one that did the stone stuff.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so it is.
And he had made it. There's some special folk art exhibit at the High Museum when the Olympics, Summer Olympics were in Georgia that year, in Atlanta, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And then he made another one for me. Okay, the one in the middle, I bought at a little gallery up in North Georgia. I don't remember who made it. It was inexpensive, and I liked it. The one next to it, the 2-color piece, is made for the tourist trade. It's a Cherokee war mask of some sort from that Cherokee reservation up there in southeastern, what is it, North Carolina, Georgia?
I think
Somewhere
it's
up
North
there.
Carolina.
Yeah. They have an absolutely fabulous craft shop there, beautiful stuff, baskets and everything. And that takes care of that wall except for this piece, which is a Japanese something. I don't really know if it's a woodcut or a wood block print. I somehow think it's a wood block print. I don't know, the coloring makes me question it. It came from Japan, and Shirley Fisher brought it to us from one of her trips, and I have no idea what it represents or who made it or anything else, but I like it, it's nice. Very typical so-called mask from Puerto Rico, a Mardi Gras mask. Nobody ever uses them for masks, but they made zillions of them, of all different sizes, and it's quite interesting. I don't know whether that represents a bull or what it represents, but I decided that the man who made it, Don McLean, had somehow heard of or seen pointillistic art, that stuff that's made with little tiny dots of paint, and thought he was doing it in that picture. I don't know whether that's true or not. And the Doug Odom large angel with the halo. I have no idea where I got that. I like it. And the little angel beneath it, somebody gave to me at Christmas. And this is a Maori piece, basket, from Australia, which somebody brought to me from there.
You got a lot of baskets up on the top shelf.
But there are no significance, Betsy. I don't even know what they are. And I can't. One up there is a cheap, probably Chinese imitation of baskets that were made in the South when I was a child, made of pine straw. And we had an aunt who lived with us who made thousands of them and gave them to everybody in the whole county except for my mother, and didn't give her a single one. And my mother took care of her for years.
Wow.
Isn't that awful? We don't have a single thing that she made.
Okay.
That pottery platter was made by Minnie Atkins. It was designed by Minnie, and she had a niece who deals with pottery, who lives up in Kentucky, in Ohio someplace, and they made that as a joint activity. That piece was made. Willie Mendoza in southern Louisiana said that he made it, but frankly, I don't think he did. That looks like a commercial fence that was certainly not painted when it was used. But he found it somewhere and he painted it, and I love it. The other side is also painted, so if you wanted to, you could just reverse it. And I think the colors on the other side are predominantly dark red, like the stems of these blue flowers. The one on the right of that is a lithograph that I bought in Alaska. I don't remember who made it, but it's a signed and numbered lithograph, and I love loons, and I like that picture a lot. The one to the right of that, the three little guys in the picture, that's a linen placemat from Liberty's in London, and the men are the beef eaters who are the guards at the Tower of London. And they still wear uniforms that look like that. They stop at just about, all the guards are short. So when I say they stop just above the knee, I mean it's short. And it is said the castle will fall when the last one dies. And anyway, they're out there on duty and they're very colorful and they're fun. That's just another Willie that I bought, but I like it a lot. However, I never told anybody that I dealt with what to do or how to change it or how to fix it or to alter it in any way at all. I never made a single suggestion about their artwork. And I never dickered with any of them about prices. But I really wish that border on that thing were not such insipid colors. It needs stronger colors to go with the piece that's in the middle. Okay, this is Minnie Atkins.
What about the mermaid? Or I guess she's not a mermaid. Oedipus.
That's Oedipus Titus. You
Oh,
wanna pull-
Oedipus Titus.
That piece was made by R.A. Miller, who's really quite well known, and a lot of his stuff sells at auctions these days. But I went to see him where he lives, somewhere in Georgia, I think. And he worked out of his garage, and he had gazillions of these silhouetted things that he cut out of tin and painted, and just piles of them. And I bought 2 or 3. They were $10 a piece. And I think it's interesting that they now sell at auction for $100. They're not worth $100, but that's what they sell for. From the Kentucky FolkArt Society, they have a whole bunch of stuff in the cellar and in their little shop for sale, and I just bought it for fun. And I have, what's the man's name? Collins. Lackluster Collins. Can you imagine lackluster for a name? And I'm sure he made it up. But I think it's a very interesting surrealistic piece, and I have no idea of the significance of any of it, but you know, you can sit and think what you want to about it. I just liked it. It was not expensive, so I bought it.
Looks like Humpty Dumpty on the back there.
That's right. It does look like
See
Humpty Dumpty.
the little doll down here.
What?
Who's did the doll?
Okay. Can you get the doll from there?
Yeah, she's right there.
Okay, this doll, I think, want me to hold it?
You can.
And now it's in the light, I can't
Oh,
remember.
okay, no, it's against the light.
Okay,
That doll was made by, I think, a Homa Indian over in southeastern Louisiana, down south in those bayous of eastern New Orleans. And all that black stuff is Spanish moss, and it's not as wiry as it looked. It's very crude and very primitive, and she's not highly skilled or anything else, but it's kind of fun. I bought this on the streets of New Hampshire, just a stupid impulse. This young man was out there with a bunch of his paintings, and I suppose I bought it because I had that apocalypse piece in the living room. But in any case, it was fun, and I don't know, it cost nothing. And he was thrilled to have it. And I was glad that he wrote the passages from the Bible on there. They're a little hard to read, but they explain what's going on. It's from the book of Revelation. It's easier than looking it up in the Bible. But he named himself Ocean McClary because I don't know why, because I think he was interpreting himself to be part of the whole wide world, and you know, therefore ocean. I don't know what he meant by that.
What about the two on the right of it?
Okay, you ready, Mike?
yeah,
Okay, those are just two pieces. When I was up in Kentucky once, and I was buying something from all that crowd. Can't remember their names again. What's his name? Tim Lewis.
Tim Lewis.
The Lewises. I had bought some things from some of them that I knew. Well, all of a sudden the word got around in them hills up there, and people were running off in the bushes and painting stuff. We had never painted anything before. And these two guys showed up with these pictures. Both, the one on the top, I think, is Christ teaching to the multitudes. And the bottom one is Noah. And they not only paint pictures of biblical themes, they know their Bible inside out and upside down. And I asked them, you know, to explain the Noah story to me again, and he knew every bit of it, and that's why there's a storm that they're going into, and as soon as Noah jumped off the ship, the weather cleared up, and they had clear sailing, and he was swallowed by the whale and all that.
Jonah.
Did I say yes, Jonah, not Noah. Sorry.
That's okay. I was trying to figure out why the whale wasn't on the ship if it was Noah, but I guess he didn't need to be. But do you remember who the guys that did the patriotic whirligig?
you want to tell us about this one, Betsy?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay, back up for a minute. The big piece I have in the living room, the Apocalypse, I've spent a lot of time trying to find out who really made it. It was made by James Harold Jennings. And I bought that from a gallery in North Carolina for, oh, that's a lot of money, $450.
Woo!
Yeah.
You
And then-
liked it.
What?
You liked it.
I liked it a lot, and I really wanted a piece of this stuff. It's the only piece I had, and I need to get this bird's tail fixed one day. He got tired of doing this, Willie. and he just quit. Ab the Flag Man, that came from Marshall Webster's gallery in Montgomery, Alabama. And Ab made nothing but highly stylized American flags for years. And how you could do so many. There's sort of typical one. And I wanted one of the flags, but I never got around to buying it. And they were pricey. And little diagraph sketch here. Here, see these flags? They were absolutely wonderful.
Look at the picture she's showing. What might take a...
I never got around to buying one of those. They were a little on the pricey side. And then I walked into her gallery one day, because I used to stop in there every time I went back and forth to New Hampshire. I like her. She's young and full of life, and this neat gallery. Oh, okay. That was made by Minnie Adkins, and she made them. That's it.
You want her?
No, this goes in me. Yeah, Minnie, after her husband died, married a man who had been a welder. So he sort of did all her welding for her, and she made some of these iron pieces. It's really quite nice, and everybody in the woods up there copied her chicken, but it's really Minnie's chicken. And she has, or the FolkArt Society has made gifts of that piece to several folk art museums around the country. And I think I got it for their wedding present. And I brought it home. I was in love with it. And I brought it home and showed the society. He said, let's keep it. So I kept it and bought her something. It's just a piece of contemporary pottery.
Hey.
Yes, it is. I like it a lot. This has a long story. I received, there was a notice in one of my folk art publications about an auction to be held in Maine. We were up in New Hampshire that summer. And I ordered the catalog for $25, and it was a beautiful catalog, all slick colored pictures of everything. And I absolutely fell in love with everything in there, but particularly the stuff done by this man. And the copy in the catalog was not worth a hoot. It was all about the man who had collected this stuff and not about anything else. And it was annoying. But still, as this was to be held, the auction was to be held in Maine, not too far from where we lived, I decided I wanted to go. So I carefully explained to Simon, I'm going to learn, I'm not going to buy anything. And Simon standing there, his last words were, just buy it. If you like it, buy it. Which is typical, my husband, also typical of me, I'm not buying anything. It was a long drive over there, but I got there late in the afternoon, the day before the auction. And of course they had open house. You go around and look at all the stuff the day before. And I looked, and this man, as it turned out, his name was Joe McFall, but he was sort of affectionately known in the catalog as Preacher, which he said later was never his nickname. That's something that was made up for the catalog. But in any case, apparently a lot was made up for that catalog. But he had several smaller pieces, most of which were sort of satirical comments on feminism, which was going on big. And some of them, for example, would show a wall built around sort of like a cage in a public place with somebody inside it, and the sign would say, come and see the educated woman. And he had lots like that they had lots of whirligigs with men out there doing it with all kinds of animals.
Oh,
it was funny. It didn't even border on being fun. pornographic. It was just funny. And this, of course, was the big piece. And I snooped around, and I looked, and I worried, and I'm telling myself I'm not going to buy it. And then I finally decided I would bid on it. But I decided, and I hadn't at that point, or I never, as a matter of fact, never got there. I had never even thought about paying $2,000 for anything. Not my house or my wardrobe or my car or anything else. Certainly not a piece of folk art. But I decided I wanted that badly enough. I was going to buy it, and I was going to bid up to $2,000. And then I would just have to shut up because you can lose control so easily. Anyway, I didn't have to go that far. I think I paid around $1,500 for it. And it's just thrilled crazy. Didn't give 1 second's worry about how I was going to get it, where it came from, where it needed to go. And then they called in the shipping people to give me a price, and it was just something absolutely outlandish, like $800.
Wow.
And I said, no, that's ridiculous. I can't pay that. And we messed around with it for a while. And we finally ended up paying, I don't know, a lot. It was too much, but it was maybe $300-400. And if they brought it to Galveston, which is where we were living, I would have to have a truck with a hydraulic lift, which would cost X hundreds of dollars more. But if I wanted to unload it in Houston, or have them unloaded in Houston and get it to Galveston myself, it would be a whole lot cheaper. So that's what we decided to do. And it arrived at the Houston warehouse, and I borrowed Andrew's truck. It had lots of red flags hanging off the end because it's longer than the bed of the truck. And we drove up there and got it. And before I got there, I was thinking to myself, I was out of my mind. I mean, that's a big nothing. What do I need with that thing? That was the biggest mistake I ever made. As soon as I saw it, I was electrified all over again. So I was really happy about it. In any case, we drove it back to Galveston. It was filthy because it had been kept outside, mounted outside some little country church. And a preacher had bought it, the man who made it. And it was wired electrically to a 12-volt battery. That's the big one.
Yeah.
And he could flash the lights on those assorted horses and, threaten them with whatever, hellfire and damnation or heaven or anything. But he used this in his sermons.
Funny.
And Simon wanted me to let him rewire it, but I couldn't really stand to touch. And if I had an infinite amount of money, I might go get a professional to do that. It would be fun, but I'm not gonna do it. I'll just leave it the way it is. In any case, we got it to Galveston, and it was so filthy from dust and dirt from having been outside. And I brought it in and bought myself a huge supply of what are little cotton swabs? Q-tips.
Q-tips, yeah. Cotton balls or something?
Q-tips and cotton balls and alcohol, because I didn't think it would do any good to use water. I don't know what made me decide alcohol would be better, but it turned out it was the thing to do. Anyway, it took me so long to get in there and clean it up. And I already had a contractor in Galveston who'll do anything and do it right. So he hung it, and he also hung it up here. This goat was made by Gregorio Marzan. He lived in Spanish Harlem in New York and had been a farmer in Puerto Rico, and I guess was bored and had nothing else to do, and he started making these things. And I had seen a small collection of his animals, maybe 4, 5, or 7 or 10 at a small show in Houston, and liked them a lot, and managed to track him down and got his phone number somehow, and had the hotel clerk call him up because the hotel clerk spoke Spanish, and it just goes on. And so I went up to see him to buy one of these pieces, and he had his daughter come over because she speaks English, and he doesn't. He speaks a little. But they were watching out for our safety. I went with my sister-in-law Shirley, who's about 5 feet tall and fierce. Nobody would dare grab her purse. You'd get slugged if you did. In any case, we went up there, and he agreed to make this. He would, the goat, and it's not really the goat I wanted, but it's the goat he produced, so of course I took it. And I don't remember what I paid for that. I'm going to look that up in 1 second. Interruption quickly. Probably $100. Yeah. I paid $100 for the chicken. I think I also paid $100 for the goat. Some of his stuff goes to crazy amounts of money in the folk art galleries, but that had nothing to do with anything. In any case, he was a sweet little man and enjoyed having us there, and was concerned that we got in and out of Spanish Harlem safely, and was embarrassed when he discovered he was sitting there in his sleeveless undershirt.
His wife beater t-shirt.
Right, absolutely. So he excused himself and went and put a shirt on. It was very sweet. And then Shirley bought those pieces on separately on the subway and got lots of attention for carrying the goat in particular.
I bet.
These were made by somebody named Patrick Davis, and I first saw them at a small art gallery in somewhere up in New England, not Boston, but probably Concord, and they were very pricey. And I didn't even know he lived in Texas at that time, and then I was, maybe a couple of years later, I was in a little bookstore art gallery shop kind of attached to the Menil Gallery in Houston, and saw that they had 2 or 3 of these, and I was delighted and asked about them, and there was a man in there, smart aleck, who said to me, "Do you realize how ephemeral those are?" Because he had curated the show that I had seen where they were the first time. And I said, "Yes, I do," which I didn't, but they are. They're going to disappear, but never mind. So I ended up finding him in his house where he lived in Houston, in such a terrible part of Houston that he came, and he looks just like that violinist over there. But he came out of his house and stood outside, and when he knew I was coming, and waited for me to get to it.
Oh.
And it was in an area where they still had no sidewalks, and they had ditches between the streets and the houses.
Wow.
A real ditch. It's 3 feet deep or something.
Wow.
For drainage, and I don't know what he thought he could live on, but he was living some kind of weird existence. And again, it was probably high-level schizophrenic or something, but very, very strange. And wandered the neighborhoods collecting scrap stuff. These things are not, people think they're paper mache, but they're not. They're built on some sort of wire frame under there. And I don't know what the process is. He adds all this to it. But I see his pieces occasionally at folk art shows, and they're smaller. And people like them, but they don't want to get them because they never heard of them. And the last time this happened, somebody asked me if I'd heard of them, so I gave them the whole thing, chapter and verse, and they bought some of them.
Nice.
Anyway, they were they're neat. think I paid the small ones were about $100 a piece from Patrick, not from the gallery. And the large one may have been $3, but I wish I had the whole little string quartet of large ones, because he had made all of them. They're really neat. And then sometimes later I saw the dog. I think that's a killer dog. I love that dog.
Did he do the dog?
He did a dog too, yeah.
What about that one?
What about the lizard? Did he do that?
That's made by Tim Lewis again. He carved wood before he carved the stone stuff.
Are these his too? These on the bookcase down here?
Are these one?
These Tim's too? The fox and the,
Oh, yes.
and I guess it's a horse.
Oh, that's a very famous horse, yeah. The horse
Pull the horse out a little
signature
bit more.
piece for the Kentucky. It's the logo for the Kentucky Folk Art Center.
Oh.
And that was made by Minnie Atkins. Look on the bottom and see how it's signed, if it's signed.
Yep.
Is her husband's name on there?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
What, it's G&M Atkins?
Garland. No, it's not Garland. Yes, it was. It's Garland, actually. That's Minnie's husband. But you know, what his contribution, I mean, all design stuff is strictly hers. But he cut out the rough model of horse from a piece of local wood he picked up in the yard.
Wow.
And a chainsaw. And then she refined it, and it's a real nice piece. But you know, I'm so literal minded and boring. It's the proportions that bother me a bit. That's what makes it.
Looks a little like a brontosaurus.
Yes, it does.
This is, Jim Lewis did this little bench too.
What?
He did this little fish bench.
Who did that?
Jim Lewis.
Jim Lewis, yeah.
Who did the lady under the fireplace?
That's a woman who's called, it's a funny last name. We have to look inside somewhere to find it. It's a Czech name, like SZP something. What is her name? At auction.
It's an old
At
wallpaper
a folk art meeting, yeah, and I completely just blew my cool. I lost control. And I paid $900 for it, which is more by far than I had meant to pay. And then I got it home and I looked at it and I was beside myself. I loved it so. Isn't that a nice one?
It's beautiful.
And I need to stop when I need to go back to the notion of trying to find some way to display those. And her name is not Zep, but it's something where we can look it up.
What? Did Jim Lewis do this cobra rattlesnake on him?
No, that was done by a potter from Georgia, Crocker, and his brother. And they have made a number of them, and I find it interesting from looking at auction sales. They're still making them. The price keeps going up, which makes me happy.
What's that thing in the middle of the window?
Oh, that's made by Mark Bradford. Mark Bradford has now settled down to being a sculptor. And he lives in Houston, and I knew him when he was a little kid because he and his parents lived in that apartment we had in the back of our house in Newton. And he was very shy, nice fellow, still gone. And he had a show. No, I went on a folk art show, and it was called Folk Art, which made me want to cry. His recent work at the Small Art Gallery. And the jackass, his agent who had put the show together, didn't know which way was up. I mean, what she wrote about him for the little biographical, it was so low level and stupid. And I just wanted to tell him that, but you know, I couldn't write it myself. You know what his inspiration for that was? I think you're old enough to remember that. Do you remember John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever? Okay, do you remember the poster of him in the white tuxedo? That was his inspiration, he told me.
It looks like that.
Yeah.
But you paid $1,400 and bought 2 other pieces, and now it's worth $30,000.
Well, it's not the same piece, though.
Right.
It's the early version. This is the early version of the recent. It's, you know how they do all this stuff. He simply called it Yellow Man, and the paint he used on it was a stronger yellow. And it got some rust showing, and I decided to clean it up and repaint it. And the paint that I chose is a paler color. I would like a stronger color. But in any case, my newspaper man leaves his paper in that big hole in the middle of the day. So I don't have to bend over.
Nice.
And that's not all rusty.
And the same man did this one?
Yeah. And he's still there, and oh, I know, that's what I was gonna make you do, but we don't have time, we'll do that another time. There's a folk art, no. Did you know about the Houston Art Car Parade? Mark Bradford won first prize every year for so many years, I think they made him stop the first one he made, he's a welder. By trade, his parents got tired because he was going to school and getting drunk all the time and not doing anything.
Talk about it, Carmen. Tell us about the table.
Yeah, I had seen pieces of furniture that Minnie Adkins had made. So all I had to do was find the piece of furniture I wanted her to do. So I found that table at the Salvation Army someplace. It's heavy, solid oak, I think. And took it to her, and that's what she did with it.
Neat.
And I really ought to move it out of here and put it in the living room. And now that I think of it, I may do that one of these days.
We'll help you do it while we're here.
What?
We'll help you do it while we're here.
Yeah, well, I'll have to find a place to do it.
Well, you've got a little glass table over there with the chicken on it. You could move that in here and move that out
Yeah,
there.
yes, I could.
We'll talk about the ones up on the...
Oh, those are all Mose Tolliver. And Mose Tolliver is one of the first folk artists that everybody knew and heard of. And that still life down here may in fact be one of his very, very early pieces, and I quite like it because it makes no sense. He just squoze it all in there, and the grapes are upside down, and the bananas flying across the top of the page, and it's okay, I like it. And then the other 3 up on top over that, I traded somebody a piece of one of my Patrick Davises for a Mose Tolliver. He had a bunch of them. And then I bought the other pieces directly from Mose. I tracked him down where he lived in, where? Tuscaloosa? Montgomery. Let me see which one it was. It's Montgomery. And went to see him. And again, he had had an accident, and something very heavy had fallen on his legs and messed him up totally. So he could no longer do anything. And so he did this, and he used to sit on the edge of his bed in this pitiful little shack he lived in and paint these things sitting down, on his bed. And his whole house was full of this stuff. And they're interesting. I think it's interesting. The men's legs go all the way up to the armpits, and he's got a lot of pornography, which he shows it.
I think that's a
at
woman's
these-
breast.
Those breasts hanging all the way to the ground there?
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Absolutely, they are. And the middle one with all those people going someplace on a funny tractor. I said to him, "Are they going to church?" He laughed. He said, "They ain't going to church. They going to a dance."
What about this one? Burr.
Oh, that man is so fine. I couldn't afford anything he had, but that, and I paid $300 for that. But in any case, what's his name?
Burl Simpson?
Virgil Simpson.
Virgil.
And he had, been a farmer, and he was old, and he started making whirligigs. If you are ever within 100 miles of that place, you need to go in there and look. Because this was hanging on his shop. The shop was in his barn. It was hanging outside. And he'd agreed to make one for me. But his whirligigs are at the Abbey Rockefeller FolkArt Museum and elsewhere. They're at the FolkArt Museum in Birmingham, National FolkArt Museum. And they are so fine. They are at least 2 stories high in a building, and maybe 3. And finely engineered so that the wind just has them doing all kinds of things. And they're, many colors. And they're just beautiful. And he has about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 built in this field. And some jackass decided to come around and start shooting them up with rifles at night.
Oh.
And he decided he wasn't going to put up with it. So he goes out there with his own rifle, or probably shotgun. And he was not firing at them, he says, and I believe him. He was firing into the air to scare them away. And then he got arrested for that. He was going to be tried and sent to jail. And some rich woman who owned some of his work, came to his rescue. He also made that airplane down
Oh,
there.
he made that?
Yeah, and there's an ornament that goes on top, and it got lost. And I can't find something to replace it. And again, I bought that because it's the only thing he had that I could afford. And it's really heavy. And I should hang the airplane from the ceiling or something.
It's really neat, except that it's on that stand.
Yeah.
With all the angels on the bottom.
I would not claim it as Minnie Atkins. And those are more cutouts by that same R.A. Miller.
Oh, okay.
And one of these days I'll get around to hanging them up in here probably. I
these the
like the
chickens?
chickens. I love those chickens, yeah.
Well, is this the piece that fell off?
No, I think that's the piece I tried to make fit on there and couldn't do it.
Oh.
Something like that. I went around to a trophy store and tried, if I could get that piece out of the middle
Well, you just need something on it, like, so that you can...
to hold it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just need to... Make Mike look at it, he can figure it out.
All right. Jimmy Lee Suttoth is quite well-known folk artist, and when he started out, and this may be early enough to have been in that period, I don't know, but he worked with, mud and dirt and spit and other stuff, materials of that sort, to do his paintings. And I bought this one, and I couldn't figure out what it was, but they are cotton pickers. And if you've ever seen cotton pickers, they drag these long burlap bags behind them and stuff the cotton in the bags. And then that big green thing is the wagon that collects the cotton from the individual pickers. So that's what that's all about. And those 2 pictures on the side were all the rage for a while. That's a really nice one. It's signed, numbered, lithograph. And this is a lithograph, but it's neither signed nor numbered, but it's off the original plates and all that. And I know this one has not faded. And this one looks to me as though it has faded. Anyway, they don't go in the folk art category. Somebody looked at this piece over here, which says, I was shot by a handgun through the heart. I hate handguns.
We ought to take it up to Washington.
That's right.
Let those little kids carry it in
That's
there.
right. Somebody was looking at that and they said to me, a real innocent, well, they shot him too. Did they kill him? I said, it has nothing to do with reality. Lamont Williams made a bunch of smaller pieces later when he was selling his bigger stuff so well. So he made these smaller pieces. And I absolutely love these with the women driving these cars simply because they look so aggressive and they look as though they're going to run over the entire world out there. And you just better get out of their way. And anyway, I loved it. I still do. Okay, the goat. I've always loved that woman's work, and she's Indian, and I don't remember which tribe, but Navajo, Hopi, one of those Western tribes. And she's very old, and everything she makes is made of cut-out cardboard boxes. You know, corrugated cardboard. She makes cutouts, and then she decorates them in some way. And the only thing that's consistent with her is the earrings seem to be her trademark. And they were getting on for being pricey, and then I saw that in the museum shop, which is a surprise to find this out. Often in a museum shop, they're cheaper than they are somewhere else, you know, at the dealer or anyway, that was what I paid for that. $68, which was a real bargain, I can tell you.
But tell about the framing thing, because that
And
was
then
neat.
Celia Strain, who ran a little framing gallery in Galveston, very nice. I took that to her to frame, and I knew I wanted a frame with depth, so we could handle it that way. And I chose the background color, that gray stuff, which I thought was nice. And then I left it with her to do. And when I went back to pick it up, she held it behind her back and she said, I did something to this. If you don't like it, I promise you I will take it apart and do it just the way you want it, no charge. And then she showed me, she had put that little green piece across the bottom, which I think was a stroke of
I
genius.
love it. It makes it
absolute stroke of
three-dimensional.
genius. Yeah.
And what about Judy Judy?
And then that Judy Judy is what happened to that's what Cher Schaefer decided she was going to do after she painted this more primitive stuff like the piece over the door and these other things over here. She was going to be an untrained artist instead of a folk artist. And, oh, the kitty. That kitty, I think, is perfect for that frame. And I had been to an auction in New Hampshire. They used to have them every weekend, auction of stuff out of people's houses. The entire contents of a house of an old couple who lived to be 150 years old, and then they sold everything. And I had gone to get some picture frames, and I had just missed buying one, which just killed me. I really wanted it, and I was playing it too cool, and I lost it. So the next piece that came up was that picture frame, which I didn't even really want. But I bought it for $11, and I absolutely love it to death.
I've never seen anything
It's
like
the
it.
real McCoy. I mean, just look at that elaborate stuff. And that's real silver and gold leaf. And it is really a killer for, you know, a frame of that period. So I walked around with it in the house, unframed, just the frame sitting on the floor, until I could stand it no longer. And he said, either throw that out or get something in it. So I went up to my little local gallery with it and asked her to help me find the right thing to go in there. And she came out with that damn cat. And if that's not perfect for the frame, oh, don't you think so? I think it's absolutely perfect. It looks so Victorian and cluttered up and stylized. But anyway, I really love that. And my friend Sally Fish loves it more than I do. And she made me promise I would give it to her.
Oh,
And I died and I said, okay, I'll give it to you. But you have to give it back to Mark or Andrew if they want it. So you can keep it for your lifetime and you give it back to them. So that's the deal we made.
that's a pretty good deal.
And the one under that is a Tamayo lithograph. And I was wandering around doing my thing in San Francisco when I was at a meeting. And I saw this in a very commercial gallery. I mean, they don't sell to anybody but tourists ever. And I was not familiar with the piece. And I just absolutely spaced out over it. I thought there was something funny about it, something amusing about it. I don't know why.
It looks like Beavis or Butthead. I can't.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. And I just went bonkers. And I think at that very commercial gallery, it was $300 frame. And I was just beside myself. So I went back and I consulted with Si, and it's stupid, I didn't have to consult with Si. Anything I ever said I wanted, he simply said, buy it. He had one word, and that was it, 2 words. And somebody suggested, and I don't know who it was, see if you can find it, or something, another print, but original signed print by Tamayo, and see how the prices compare. Well, let me tell you, they compared very nicely. And at the second gallery, which was not a small commercial gallery, it was small, but it was not a commercial gallery, he said, anytime you can find a signed Tamayo print for $300, just buy it and don't worry. So I went back and bought it, and of course went straight back to the cocktail lounge at the hotel and showed it to all these people I was having a drink with, and they all had blank faces. Anyway, I like it and I've enjoyed it, and it's they didn't even charge me for shipping.
The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are described in Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 through 8. The 4 horsemen are symbolic descriptions of different events which will take place in the end times. The first horseman of the apocalypse is mentioned in Revelation 6:2. I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. This first horseman likely refers to the Antichrist, who will be given authority and will conquer all who oppose him. The Antichrist is the false imitator of the true Christ, who will also return on a white horse. The second horseman of the apocalypse appears in Revelation 6:4. Then another horse came out, a fiery red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make men slay each other. To him was given a large sword. The second horseman refers to terrible warfare that will break out in the end times. Satan on this one. And what does that say up at the top? Take peace from the earth. And then the third horseman is described in Revelation 6:5 and 6. And there before me was a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the 4 living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a day's wages, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine. The third horseman of the apocalypse refers to a great famine that will take place, likely as a result of the wars from the second horseman. The fourth horseman is mentioned in Revelation 6:8. I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. The fourth horseman of the apocalypse is symbolic of death and devastation. It seems to be a combination of the previous horsemen. The fourth horseman of the apocalypse will bring further warfare and terrible famines along with awful plagues and diseases. What is most amazing, or perhaps terrifying, is that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are just precursors of even worse judgments that come later in the tribulation, Revelation chapters 8, 9, and 16. The 5th horseman is the ultimate victor, presented in Revelation chapter 19.
And the man chose to put a picture of Jesus on the end.
The picture that you see in Sunday school, right?
Right.
I bought that at a sale in New York. Actually, the gallery is in, I think that's Marsha of somebody's gallery in Montgomery, Alabama. But anyway, I loved it, and I kept walking around it in circles and looking at it, and I had only just learned that all clouds are flat on the bottom, and all children paint them as big round puffs. Did you know that? I didn't know that. And I thought it was funny that he had made such rigid bottom lines on those clouds. Anyway, I couldn't decide to buy it. I couldn't decide to not buy it. And I really wanted it, and I finally ended up buying it, and I like it, and it has a place of honor in my house, and I love it.
Muller.
May, I don't know how I found out about her. I knew she was there. Somebody must have told her, and that's over in southeast Louisiana, back in that squashy country between New Orleans and I-10, east of New Orleans. And this is presumably a sugarcane field, and that's a processing plant behind her, and they're picking sugarcane. She painted black people doing that, and I suppose black people did the work, but she herself was not black. And let me see if I have any other note about May Kubler. I bought this at a FolkArt meeting in, they had a few little things in a sales shop that somebody had collected. I paid nothing for it. I don't know, maybe $8, and I don't know who did it. And I just rather liked it because of its crudeness. But can't even think where the city was. I don't know whether it was Palm Springs. Is that on the east side of Florida or the west?
I think it's on the west, or east, I mean.
Well, then it was Palm Springs, which is an interesting city, but I didn't get to see it. And that's the end of that. I just thought it would look nice at my little picture of the sugarcane field from the same part of the world.